Beloved, if you want to know how this all came to be, first understand that everything is mathematics. Everything in this third dimension is a shadow of the mental dimension, the fourth, space-time, mentalism. Just as this two-dimensional shadow of my physical form is the second dimension. How did everything, something, come from nothing? How could this be? To empty your mind and tap into your higher mind, beyond the physical brain, the higher self. You must look your spirit body, your third eye, your pineal. You must look to see the words of the Gnostics and the Pythagoreans. To understand anisotropy and isotropy is to bring us closer to the mathematics, which will help us understand exactly what's going on, why it's like this, and how the one can change it if you choose. To put your ego identification aside, stop identifying with the delusion of self, and awaken to your full authority, your absolute potentiality. Anisotropy, artificial, is different properties in different directions. It's dependent on direction, like validation. Isotropy is authentic. It's the same property in all directions. Gnosis. Gnosis as in knowledge acquired through experience. Experience as in you have experienced it yourself. Like, if you never tasted an orange before in your life, and you stood before me, and I'm explaining to you, as best I can, what an orange tastes like, you may eventually come to a point where you think, conceptually, that you know what an orange tastes like. But gnosis is when you actually take that orange and taste it yourself, it's very different than the concepts you previously held based on me telling you what it tasted like and you thinking you understood. But to experience it yourself, to have the gnosis, which is knowledge through experience, versus the book smart knowledge or someone just telling you, you have knowledge through like a book smart or a concept. You have an idea of what an orange tastes like. But to taste it yourself, you have a subjective definition, an experiential gnosis, knowledge. Now, anisotropy is like duality. It's like a spectrum, where on one end of the spectrum, you have polarity compared to the other end of the spectrum. Different properties in different directions. And it's dependent on direction, spectrum. See? This is artificial. This is duality. I will explain further if you just empty your mind. See what I'm saying. Isotropy is authentic. You have the same property in all directions, a balance. Uniformity in all directions. Something is consistent and integrity. Precise. Focus. Now, I didn't really want to start with that, but it all makes sense later. How did this all come to be, you wonder? How can you have everything, a Big Bang, for example, just happen from nothing? Our scientists want to say that this, as far as they could tell, this all started because of a Big Bang. But that before the Big Bang, there was nothing. And post-rationally, you have to ask yourself, how could everything come from nothing? How could there even be nothing? And what does nothing actually mean? When you study black holes and you study singularities, it's another name for a black hole. What it actually is a tremendous amount of mass condensed into a single point. Like, I think like a pinch of like star material would weigh like a certain amount of hundreds of thousands of times or millions more than like the Eiffel Tower, all the metal in the Eiffel Tower. You have to imagine taking everything that you know as something, rewinding it all back, the same way you imagine a Big Bang going outward, rewinding it all the way back until it is all condensed into a single point, until there's nothing before that. Where did it come from? The whole point of anisotropy and isotropy, the whole point of dravya being, or the one, being from stillness that moved. It's the very definition of light. If I can go to that first, maybe that'll help. Now, a lot of you think you know what light is because you see it. You see visible light. But there's much non-visible light that we do not see. For example, the radio waves, or the signals bouncing off the satellites, or your cell phone signal, your Wi-Fi and your data, the internet. How my phone right now is connecting to the internet. The light of the lasers or radio waves or whatever it is right here in front of my face. It's coming through my walls, going through our skin. But we don't see it, but it's there. If you Google and investigate what exactly light is, what I found today is simplicity. I'm going to give it to you in simplicity. I'm sure it gets much more advanced, but this is just to visualize. Light is a form of energy, obviously. Electromagnetic radiation. When electrically charged particles, like electrons in atoms, change their movement or vibration. This is how light is achieved. So, if you could imagine, back to the point where there was nothing, nothing as in everything, everywhere, all at once, condensed to a single point of non-existence. Nothing existed because it was all no longer this, that, and the other, but it was unified as a completely different thing because it was everything. To the point where the only way to define what it actually was would have to be to call it nothing, because it is no thing, it's everything. Do you understand? I don't mean nothing like an absence of like things. I mean nothing as in it is no one thing, it's everything. In one, completely entangled, entrained, and unified. But before this, before there was light even, just stillness. It is through the isotropy and the anisotropy, that light is born through, as I said, a change in movement or vibration. As in, when stillness, complete stillness and nothing, all of a sudden, just because existence itself deemed it so mote it blessed be, avra chadavra, let there be light. There was movements of thought. Thinking is movement. Just as moving my hand is movement, but also when you fire those electrons in your mind to think your thoughts, there's movement. Do you see? There's those fired electrons are giving off radiation and light, electromagnetic radiation, light, essentially. All right, let's move on to the one. What is this one? According to Gnostics, some call it Bythos, the monad. Even the Pythagoreans call it the monad, who's Greek. It's nothing. But nothing in the sense that I explained to you. No thing, as in not one thing. But the one that it is everything. A singularity. A multilarity that is in totality an absolute singularity. Existence itself. The thing that from stillness moved, and then there was light, black light and gold light. And you say, what are you talking about? What is black light? What does black light have to do with it? I'm not talking about those cool little things you light up your posters with or your t-shirts. I'm talking about spectrum in this duality of what appears to be complete blackness. If you close your eyes, maybe you're able to see this, that what you consider, if you look, as complete darkness is actually made up of an infinite amount of tiny little white lights, like those little paintings that are just dots. But when you go all the way back, you see like a freaking sheep herder. So from this movement and change of vibration, either the speed or the slowing down of the movement, there was light. Light was born. The Gnostics call it pleroma. When the monad, the one, thought, the first thought was Barbelo. Barbelo is seen as the original divine feminine, although what she actually is androgynous. The mother father of all existence in the third dimension, the mother father of all material creation, of all the aeons, of masculinity and femininity, yin yang, negative positive, dark and light. Dark as in being dark black light, a spectrum of light. Authentic masculine, authentic feminine, the divine masculine, the divine feminine. The pleroma is fullness. If you could think of the number 0, from this 0, when it's split into, or when Barbelo emanated from the one, she was an androgynous, authentic opposite of the one. For the one was nothing, but she became something. She became yin and yang. Yin yang. Negative, darkness, feminine, passiveness, positive, light, logic, blah, blah, blah. Now, how did everything end up like this, right? The grand design. There was an emanation. One of the last emanations of the aeons from Barbelo was Sophia, wisdom. Sophia thought to try to create without her partner's consent or without her partner's contribution. She was divine feminine. And she tried to create something without the divine masculine, without the perfection and balance and knowledge of what it took to create light. So the mathematics here, I've been trying to figure this out all day, and I finally found it. The divine feminine, the -1, okay, like if you want to go back to the pleroma, the 0 being -1 plus 1 equals 0. Like that's how you take from 0 and split it. It's -1 and plus 1. This is the authentic non-duality. But Sophia, not having her plus 1, she is -1. Plus, I in mathematics is an imaginary number, which is used to find the square root of certain difficult numbers. But here, even then, the answer is fake. It's an imaginary number. Sophia creates -1 plus imaginary number equals whatever the answer is. It's imaginary. It's a delusion. She creates the delusion of duality. It's artificial. It's anisotropy, as in, remember, anisotropy is different properties in different directions. Depending on direction, it's validation, it's inauthentic. She essentially creates Yaldabaoth, an artificial masculine, feminine. Narcissism, it's narcissistic. This is all born evil. Hypocrisy, confusion. Before this point, before her imaginary creation, there was only light, only perfection, only beauty and goodness. But here, through her mistake, she creates confusion, deception, division, contrast, comparison, denial, gaslight, injustice, dominance, pride, irrationality, psychotic, sociopathy, exploitation, competition, judgment, validation, ignorance, illogic, tyranny, no remorse, arrogance, adultery, hubris and exaltation, fear, this whole victim mentality, egoic identification with form. This being, Yaldabaoth, was completely ignorant of what it was or where it came from. Instead, it was this narcissistic sociopath, the God of the Bible, the Hebrew Bible, whom is a jealous and vengeful God, who requires its creations to worship it, who claims it's omniscient, but yet doesn't know certain things. Like when it created Adam and Eve, it didn't know that Adam would eat the fruit. It didn't know where they were when it came back in the story. It had to call out for them. Where are you guys? I can't find you anywhere. What's going on? It didn't know the snake was in the garden in that exact second, advising them to eat of the fruit. This is not an omniscient God. The Gnostics called it a demiurge, a false God. This imaginary creation of Sophia, an artificial intelligence, or should I say, illogic, a psychotic sociopath who deals with his problem of Noah by committing genocide on a planetary scale, or in the New Testament, to forgive the sins of the world. This unconditionally loving and all-merciful God requires a blood sacrifice of, quote-unquote, his only begotten son. Or that's what they would have you believe. Now, all cognitive dissonance aside, I'm not insulting you, friend. I find discrepancy with the system itself. The story itself, it's not you. And I was raised a Catholic, so at one time I believed it as well, as much as it did not agree with my core. And I knew something about it was off. Think about it. Everything you know about this character, Satan, the adversary of man, correct? Do you believe that Satan would require people to worship him? Do you think that Satan would consider himself, if being honest, a jealous and vengeful being? Do you think Satan would solve his problems by committing genocide? Or like the story of Moses, when Moses asked the Pharaoh to set his people free, and the Pharaoh declined. And he said, "Not today, sir, I will not do such a thing." The God of the story, that very night, killed every firstborn in Egypt. Children. Does that sound like a God or a Satan? And then the Jesus story requiring a blood sacrifice to forgive the sins of the world. Forgive you for stuff you didn't even do because you were born dirty, according to it. That don't sound like an unconditionally loving, all merciful God to stand idly by while an innocent man is tortured and crucified for the sins of the world? What? The Gnostics had a different take. And this is one of the reasons why the Roman Catholic Church hunted and killed them and tried to destroy and burn all of their books, which they were unsuccessful, coincidentally enough, if you believe in coincidence, or if you understand what coincidence actually is. They were unable to burn all the books, but they tried. They did not succeed. And let's go back to Barbello. If the creator of the universe, essentially, or the creator of the universe, the first emanation from the one, has a highly feminine principle. But yet you have these patriarchs who, much like their god, Yaldabaoth or Satan, or whatever you want to call it, is jealous of the power of the feminine. So they create this whole indoctrination society where they hold women down, they keep women down, blah, blah, blah. The grand design, the delusion of duality. People are born here, we're indoctrinated, convinced to believe what we're told. They define our ethics. They tell us that slavery is freedom. We believe capitalism is just. There we have it. We allow tyranny to rule us by complying with its society. That's the grand design. This is why you're here. This is why the one is here. As a matter of fact, it's why this place was created, to evolve through it. The original design, before the grand design. Now keep in mind, nothing exists if not by the hand of the source. So this grand design of all these negative qualities that I explained to you was all planned. Like, people talk about free will, but they don't understand, I don't believe, exactly what free will really means. You want to go back to Adam and Eve, for example. Catholics and Christians may argue with you that the reason why God, in that story, allowed Adam and Eve to eat the apple is because he gave them free will. But that's not what happened. This God didn't know it was happening. It was not omniscient. It did not know. It didn't know it was going to happen. It didn't know that it was happening. It didn't know where they were. Free will to the one, which is what you are in truth. Your ego mask aside and your identification indoctrination with ego, the original sin, that aside, you are the one and you do have free will. But you must choose to awaken. Not as your mask. It's not the mask that awakens. It's you in there behind those eyes, conscious and aware of what you are. And realizing that yes, you have access to this form, this body, this mind, this consciousness. But that's just a vehicle that you operate in right now. This is just the beginning. I am not speaking to you to tell you what the orange tastes like. I'm trying to point to you how to grab an orange and taste it yourself. Then you will know. Then you will see as I have seen, and even greater things. The original design, 0 equals -1, yin, the feminine, and +1, the divine masculine. Yang, -1, the divine feminine. Barbello, light is born. Authentic light. The pleroma, it is called. This whole, what the Catholics later wanted to invent their little heaven idea to get people to go on crusade and commit murder and genocide. Assassinate Templars and burn witches who don't agree with them, kill Gnostics and torture them in the arena for entertainment. Or how about the Vicar of Christ right now, the Pope over there in Vatican City? He talks a good game about the starving kids, but he does it quite comfortably on his $30 billion hoard that he's living quite comfortably on right now. So we got the original design, which is light, authentic light, the Sanatana Dharma, the divine law, the truth, the Tao, the way, Dravya, the underlying foundational quintessence of existence itself, the thing that is the one in all things, the totality, the fullness, the absolute. In the original design, unlike all those negative qualities that you see here under Yaldabaoth's physical creation and physical universe, the original design, once the entire culture awakens, or once one person or two people or three people awaken and start to show their true power, their absolute authority over this dimension and all others, what you will see in contrast to the ignorance of Yaldabaoth is integrity, authenticity. You'll see a divine masculine and a divine feminine, not what is our culture calls masculine and feminine, these gold diggers or these womanizers or these things that look impressive on the surface, but deep down are just, there's nothing honorable about them, or sincere, or genuine. I mean, they may have some good qualities, but divine masculine and divine feminine is a fullness. Integrity, authenticity, empathy, the opposite of these narcissists. Sincerity, understanding, edification. We will teach our children through intelligence, not through violence. We will teach our neighbors through intelligence, not through war and violence. Collaboration. gratitude, gnosis, knowledge through experience, acceptance, intelligence, justice, equality. This is all the truth of non-duality. This is not a delusion. This is not an illusion. This is what truth is. Everybody talks about the truth will set you free. To cut through the gaslight of this delusional duality into non-duality and realize what light actually is beyond just an idea or a concept or a symbol, it is movement from stillness. And authentic light, that is divine, friend. Not the artificial copy that creates what you see here in this world society. Isotrophy, rationale, sane, sanity, goodness, righteousness, unity, inclusivity, confidence, the opposite of fear, enlightenment, logic, humility. You don't have a tyrant. You have, if there is a leader, it is a leader who is a servant of the entire collective. So all can thrive as one. It is not some tyrant who exalts themselves like parasites off the backs of the collective so they can thrive while the collective is in poverty. Faith and belief. And when I say faith, I'm not talking about believing in something of a concept you were told. Again, this comes back to gnosis. Faith that I talk about is a belief in yourself and a belief in your potentiality, a belief in goodness, a belief in all these qualities, secular reciprocity, courage, confidence. This is the original design. This is where golden ages are born. Why am I thinking about this crap, right? I'm trying to figure out, following my series of what is vibration? How did everything end up like this? How did I awaken here in a Homo sapien body and learn to identify as my assigned name, right? My family's biological DNA, the flag of my country, the job that I took, when all this was just my puppet or my avatar in the Xbox or PlayStation video game. This character I created and I was animating. It's not who you are. You incarnated here. Yes, you built this body. But who? Who is looking through those eyes? What? Is it the ego-identified mask? Or is it the one wearing the mask? You have to choose, to decide, to look. And look honestly. And see what's there. You are not what you see in the mirror, unless you're looking all the way through. Beyond consciousness, beyond the stillness that moves, that moved. The truth I tell you, friend, you are the one, but it's not your ego, as much as your ego wants it to be. The purpose of being here, maybe for some of you, is to experience a human life, an egoic human life. But I think for others, I think especially now in the age of Aquarius, the dawn of the golden age of golden ages, the purpose here for the one is to awaken in the ego and realize exactly what it is and why it came here. It used and created the grand design so it could experience itself and evolve. Now, the rational mind might say, how the hell does a perfect being evolve? This is the grand design. It wasn't exactly a mistake like the Gnostics try to say. This was all part of the plan. Even before Sophia was created, just like Adam was created, with the sole intention of him eating that apple, regardless if he was told not to, regardless if there was an impenetrable boundary between him and that tree. Adam was going to eat the apple. Everything happens exactly as it's meant to. And that, my friend, is what free will really is. Free will is simply that. It is a decision that was made before you even incarnated in that form. A decision that was made an infinitum ago, if you can imagine that. An infinity. Before Adam was born, the creator of everything had already written that Adam is going to eat that apple and gain the knowledge of good and evil. But who defined his knowledge of good and evil? Who defines our definition of concept? To those who are asleep, we use terms very loosely here, like love, or unconditional love, or hatred, or promises we make, or our integrity, or sincerity. We say things to each other like, excuse me, when we really don't want to be excused. Or we say, I love you, months before you stab them in the back, or ask for a divorce. I love you unconditionally. But we do not realize that unconditional love, as divine as it feels and sounds, it is not, as they want you to believe, unconditional tolerance of abuse or disrespect. I think that's about it. It's about 37 minutes. What I wanted to talk about was, how do you control your vibration? I think maybe this will help. Maybe next time I'll get more into it. If you can focus, if you can awaken yourself and focus your consciousness back to before you even move into thought, before you identify as what you see in the mirror on the surface, and investigate. Take a really long, hard look down the rabbit hole at what exactly is animating that form. Take the identification away. How are you vibrating? Do you think authentic thought, or are all your thoughts adapted and adopted by the culture and the environment you grew up in? Have you been convinced, or do you think for yourself? For this right now is your vibration. For us to talk about in the next video how to control your vibration, first you have to understand where your vibration is now. How do you vibrate? Does someone else, do you actually still believe that someone else makes you feel something? Do you actually still believe that someone else triggers you? That you do not have the absolute authority over your subconscious mind in regards to triggers and traumas, and yes, holding your vibration once you change it. Until next time, hold that thought.